Hey there, waxing enthusiasts. Are you ready to experience the ultimate in smooth skin and pampering? Get ready to say goodbye to those pesky hairs with Wax in the City Brentwood, your new go-to for all things waxing and beyond. My name is Greg, and my wife and I recently opened our studio doors right here in Brentwood, Tennessee, and we can't wait to welcome you. Unlike those speedy wax joints, we take our time treating you like family every step of the way. Our Premier Club Orange membership is the key to unlocking a world of smoothness. Enjoy 50% off your first visit, a $25 gift card, and 20% off your monthly service of choice. But hurry, we started with 50 memberships and only 15 are left. Ready to join the club? Book now and experience the Wax in the City difference. Follow us on Instagram at Wax in the City Brentwood for all the latest updates and exclusive offers. Once again, that's Wax in the City Brentwood, where smooth skin and pampering await.
Hello. We are back. What is up, Nashville Fit Fam? How are we feeling today? Dylan.
Oh, we're great. The sun is out. It's a beautiful day.
Yeah,
Happy
we have
Tuesday.
Dylan today, not Jarrell. We missed Jarrell, but sorry, Jarrell.
Big sleeves to fill.
He will be flattered by that, I'm sure. What does he say? He always says, Sav, you always know, like, when you keep saying stuff like that, you're going to float my ego or something. He says something. He loves to be complimented on. Yeah, there you go. That's it. Talk dirty to me. That's what he says. Well, we miss you, Jarrell, but today we have our friend Dylan here, and that Dylan is just as special, if not more, in his own way. So how you been?
Oh, I've been great. Great. Staying busy, working, drumming, playing rugby. That's about it.
Dude, that is like the coolest thing, watching your Instagram, you drumming. Like, I think I obviously you're great at training and everything else, but you're so sick at drumming. It's awesome.
I appreciate it. And I appreciate the free publicity. This is
Oh, hell yeah. That's what I'm about. I love lifting people up, man. That's what it's all about. Community, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. And we are here with our friend, Rachel. I'm super excited to get into your story, Rachel. How are you feeling?
Hi, I'm doing well.
Good.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah. Thanks for being here.
Yes.
How's your day going?
Great.
Good. We've had quite a bit of conversation before we got on air, but we're going to get into more of your story and more of like what you do in the Nashville Fit community and beyond, whatever it is that you want to share with our community today. And I'm excited to talk about it. But I do want to say that we are brought to you today in the Game Day podcast studio by our title sponsor, Freshie, which I have right here. If you haven't tried Freshie, it's delicious. I know there's a lot of seltzers out there now. I mean, any which way that you can drink alcohol, they have made a way. But Freshie, not only are they really cool people and local, but it's a tequila seltzer that is not too sweet. It's not too like watery. I feel like, have you guys had, what is it, mom water or whatever? Or the dad water. I don't know. There's so
Happy
many
Dad.
Yeah, there's some that are like, is this alcohol?
Yeah.
And then there's some that are like, this is definitely alcohol.
Is this seltzer?
Freshie's like a perfect balance. So I feel like you can definitely like balance this into a like healthy lifestyle.
Perfect for lake days.
Yeah. And perfect for summer too. So thank you, Freshie. And we like to kind of start our podcast with this fun little segment, Rachel, called The Basket of Debate. You may have heard of us on the news.
Let's do it.
Jarrell always loves to say that it's been a famous segment on the news. But I will pass this to you, and you can pick one. And then Dylan will pick one, and I will pick one, and we will take turns. It's literally just something that we can have a fun little playful debate about. But I'll kick it off since, I'm talking a whole bunch right now. All right, so do you guys think, should grunting and loud noises be banned in the gym?
No.
I wholeheartedly agree with you.
Go to.
Yeah. What do you think?
I was going to say no.
Yeah, I think we're all on the same
we're
page.
not debating, but no.
So I feel like if someone argued yes, let's dig into why.
I think
Reverse
some people
psychology.
definitely take it too far.
Yeah.
It's like, bro, those are 10-pound dumbbells. You need to be making all that noise here. Statute of limitations on grunting. You have to earn your grunts.
Yeah.
That's
well, even if it's not 10 pounds, I feel like some people are like trying to draw attention to themselves.
Yeah.
And like, I'm not thinking of anyone I know in particular, but like,
are you?
I've seen it. No, really. I think of people that I've like rolled my eyes at in the gym. I'm like, I don't know you, and thank God I don't know you.
Mm-hmm.
But I make noises. I mean, I feel like if you're working hard, it's kind of hard to avoid.
I think a lot of people have gotten used to everybody having their headphones in.
Yeah.
And specifically with the AirPods,
yeah,
like you can't hear
yeah.
anything.
No one cares.
You don't even know you're running.
Really, if you're paying that much attention to someone else at the gym, I don't think you're doing enough work on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's my opinion.
And I would say the only other debate to that would be is if there was somebody there that had sensory issues that got dysregulated because of other people, but maybe if that's the culture of the gym, you know, maybe there's a gym for people that want to be quiet.
You know, that could be.
Do you get any grunting or loud noises at Float?
You know, but so Float Nashville sensory deprivation, but this was a thing that we had to think about because I wanted to bring in contrast therapy. And when we go into cold water, there is that primal instinct to make a sound.
Interesting. Okay.
Oh yeah.
And when you have this guttural response, like we talk about this working out too, like it's a guttural like I made it when I was delivering my children, right? It's a very like primal instinctual noise, but it also is regulating your nervous system when your vocal cords are vibrating. So it's a human instinct to vibrate our vocal cords to regulate during high stress. And if you're doing a high intensity workout, you want to regulate, your body's naturally wanting to moan or make a noise. So I think it's natural. So in our center currently, we don't have contrast therapy because I wasn't going to make a rule that people can't make a noise when that's what their human body's going to want to do. In
just
that
a
environment.
Silent scream in the cold plunge kind of thing.
And I mean, you can't, right? I gave birth to one child that was louder than anybody on the whole floor, and the next child was very quiet, right? Like, you don't have to make noise to survive something really intense. But if you need that, you need that. And I don't think it should be banned if
Absolutely
you need it.
not, yeah.
But I do get the other side of it where it might dysregulate someone else, but then that maybe, hopefully, that there is enough people that feel one way or another to create a space that can be more quiet.
That's very empathetic of you because like you're able to see both sides of that, and you know we can have our opinions, but I think it's really interesting, like all of the primal noises like you were talking about. It sent me into thinking like not just about the gym, but my first cold plunge I did pretty recently. I've done them before, but like not a real one.
Yeah.
And this is a real one. And that is absolutely so true. Like I wanted to be like, oh,
Yeah, you have to, right?
because you're like, it's a shock to the body. And it's also therapeutic in other ways to hum.
Yes.
I'm sure you've heard this. It's something that my therapist had told me about, where like humming and bouncing, and people judge it all day long, but I don't care. It's therapeutic. The vocal cord thing that you mentioned, like, you know a lot more about it, but yeah, making noises is a human thing, you know, so especially when your body is working.
Yeah, and you're doing something hard.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are doing something hard in the gym.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we settled that pretty quickly. We didn't even need to go into all that. We all agreed. What do you got, Dylan?
Is it okay to socialize at the gym, or should it be strictly business?
What do you think?
I want to hear your guys' answers
I
first.
say you should be able to socialize.
Okay.
Do you want to know why?
Yeah.
Or that's it? Well, okay, so I'm also a professor, like a part-time. I'm just adjunct professor. And my students had to do presentations. I teach computer, okay? So they were just doing these presentations just to talk about something they loved. And I was really shocked. Like, so many people, you know, don't like the younger generations. They have always something negative to say about a younger generation. But what I found in this younger generation, they're all post-COVID, right? They lived their high school years during COVID. And I would say out of 90 students, there was at least, let's say 40% of them, all of their presentations were focused on health. I was like really shocked at how they have these routines. Like some of them, more than 10 of them, are getting up at like 6 a.m. to get their workout on before their class starts at 8 a.m. And because they lived through COVID, they understand this priority in their life. But more, all these kids going were also talking about the community they have in the gym.
Absolutely.
And the bonding. And so during COVID, not only did they learn about their health and their body and how important that was, and they saw society shut down, they were isolated from their peers and only had them digitally. And so they're finding community in person in the gym, and that's inspiring them to look forward to going to the gym and keeping that into their routine.
Absolutely.
It's more than just work. It becomes something that gives life back to them, not something that just takes from them.
Right.
That's a really good point, because I was going to say it depends, my opinion, because I work at a gym that is very community driven, and that is the driving factor as to why I wanted to work there. Because I've worked in a lot of gyms, and I don't want to call it like making my rounds, because that makes it sound like I was just gym hopping and like couldn't hold a job. But it's community is what I realized after going to multiple gyms, like, oh, that's what I'm missing, is the community aspect. And it's not, I don't want to like talk to you while I'm working out necessarily. And I don't want to be like, hey, so like, how was your day? Bicep curl, bicep curl, bicep. And okay, that's awesome. Like, tell me more about that. Time and place. But, you know, group fitness is group fitness for a reason, you know, like community. And yeah, maybe not right at the second that you're working out do you want to be socializing, because that's the time you should be working or making another noise. But, you know, I agree with you. I think community is so important, especially if you want to stay consistent. And consistency we always talk about in fitness, and how to have a healthy lifestyle or get into a healthy lifestyle and stick with it. Consistency. How do you stay consistent? You have to like what you're doing. You have to there has to be some appeal to coming back and doing it again. And a lot of that is making friends, you know, or being inspired by somebody, or having that camaraderie. I know the gym I work at is wonderful with that. Everybody's so uplifting to each other, no matter what level you're on. And that to me is paramount. So yeah. What do you think?
The only thing I'll say is I guess it just depends on the gym, kind of reading the room, because I also work at a gym that's very community-based. We have the group classes. We also just have open gym, and I've made tons of friends that way. I know other people in the gym have made friends just from, hey, you and I work out at the same time every day. Like, what's your name? But, I mean, if you're in some kind of, like, powerlifting dungeon where it is all business,
right,
nobody's going to want to talk to you, know. And
right.
So I think it's just kind of reading the room. But I would say overall, yeah, the social aspect is a huge part of why people pay for a gym membership in the first place. I mean, we saw the garage gyms blow up during COVID. And then we saw all that stuff go back on Facebook Marketplace because people could go back to a gym and be around community. So, yeah. Not much debate from my end on that one.
I know. We haven't had any, like...
Well, and I'll say I think it's interesting because it really shocked me to hear the students say that, because I'm one that I want to go to the gym and I have my headphones on. I'm listening to a podcast. I'm learning. I don't want to talk to a stranger. You know, but when I go to a yoga studio, I might linger afterwards and talk to somebody, but I've never gone to make community.
Sure.
So I thought it was a really interesting perspective, but I also have never been able to establish like a routine that I've fallen in love with outside of yoga. But guess what yoga brought me? Community. You know what I mean? So maybe there is something to that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And people that notice when you're not there, I think is another big
accountability
one.
for sure. Okay, you want
last
mine?
one. Let's do it.
Okay, is it better to focus on high intensity interval training, HIIT, or steady state cardio?
Better to focus on either of those?
Yeah, do you focus on HIIT or cardio?
I don't focus on either.
Or maybe they mean which one, like if you had to skip one, like if you could only do one thing, what would you do? Like this week, if you could had to pick one, what would be more impactful?
I think a big part of fitness for me is the enjoyability. I don't know what word would be correct, but how much am I enjoying myself? And steady state cardio, it's just not. I mean, I'll do it because we've zone 2 craze, you know, like
I'll do it.
And like, if I got a good podcast on or something, like I can kind of. But I don't like to disconnect from my body when I'm exercising, and I find that I do that when I'm doing steady state cardio.
Interesting. So
HIIT to me is more challenging to me personally. It could be different for other people, but I just have more fun though doing HIIT, and there's more variability to it. Whereas steady state cardio, you typically are doing it for at the very least 30 minutes for it to be effective. So I'm just kind of like zoning out, like can't wait to get off this treadmill or Stairmaster or whatever. I'm almost caught myself there. But yeah, it's just I think I'd rather, if I had to pick one to focus on, it would be HIIT. How about you guys?
Man, that was really interesting because you said I want to stay connected to my body, which that's very meditative. You're wanting to use that as a meditative experience. And so for people that haven't found workouts that they love, I don't think they found the state of mind that brings them into their body.
That's what I'm always trying to. It's literally one of my like
people.
biggest things with clients is like the process can be amazing, but you're focused on the outcome.
Yes.
And divorcing your mind from your body, and that's not how it works.
Well, that's really good for me to hear because I have never loved like HIIT workouts and
They're
like
hard.
that. Well, yeah, because I'm like, well, this is stressing my body out. This is stressful. This is whatever. But I've never had anyone do an intense workout with me to integrate my mind and body and soul all in one. Now, I will say that when I go into some, like I prefer hot yoga and like hot core yoga because it's doing that, right? I'm able to be in something really hard. Like I love hard. I chose to natural birth my children. I love hard processes. I love cold plunge because it gets me into the core and like into, I say, the seat of my soul. And I can get a lot because it puts me into survival, right? I used to call it like, it's almost like trauma training, right? If you can put your body intentionally into trauma, when life gives you trauma, you're more resilient and you can go around and above it. But it's really interesting for me to hear you say that with HIIT because I would choose, and I do choose, to do more cardio and I'll walk and I love to look at nature and I now live on a farm, so I'll walk on the farm. I will have a podcast in while I'm walking, but I am disconnecting from my body and connecting to something outside of me, whether it's nature,
and there's nothing wrong with that either,
or the book. But it's just interesting for me to hear you put that language on it because I'm like, oh my gosh. And then it intrigues me to make me want to try something that I've labeled as like I don't know, I put a negative label on HIIT workout because I didn't like it.
Sure, but I mean, you also put a positive spin on trauma too, which I'm not saying trauma is a positive thing. It's definitely negative, but there's a silver lining to
it can be your stage
overcoming it. And like that's why we cold plunge. That's why we do hard things is on purpose. You know, that's why we work out. You know, it's to make us more resilient to things outside of our control in life because it's just going to happen. So I like that we came to this conclusion on both sides because both are effective and both have effectiveness. I'm having a hard time with English today.
It's okay.
But both are effective in their own ways. So it's not like we're debating which one is better, which one's, you know, it's just which one would we focus on. And we both laid out completely differing reasons that are both, you know, important for, I think, our listeners to hear. You know, it's like you can accomplish two very different things by doing two very different things. So
yeah, I like that. What about you?
Yeah, I would say I would primarily focus on the high intensity stuff. With what you said, time is a huge part. You know, we teach 1 hour classes, we do 1 hour PT sessions. I'm not going to have you on the treadmill for 30 minutes. You can do that anytime you want. I think people also kind of get too much into the weeds about what steady state cardio is. It's like, oh, I have to go get on the treadmill or I have to go get on the Stairmaster. It's like, go for a walk, go for a bike ride. You can do, you know, a little bit of assault bike and a little bit of lunges,
shadow
or
boxing,
some kettlebell swings. Like that's not necessarily high intensity stuff. You can still keep it in that more, let's stay in this heart rate zone and go. But yeah, I would say I mostly focus on high intensity stuff also because it is that hard, crappy thing to do. Like, yes, I can put on podcasts and go walk, or I can just kind of, you know, blast some death metal and run myself into the ground for 30 minutes. And like, okay, let's go. And the rest of the day is mine. So, yeah, both are important. Both certainly have their advantages and disadvantages. But, yeah, I'd say in my life and in my training, the high intensity stuff is more of a focus. So, yeah.
Well, let's get into That was a great conversation. I'm glad we ended on that one because we agreed on all the other ones. And we actually had like some differing opinions on that one. But let's get into your story, Rachel. So Float Nashville, you also, in your bio, you said you multi-million-dollar real estate?
Yes. So,
girl, you are a mogul. Let's go.
Well, and I don't like that. Sounds egotistical, right? And it's been a lot of it's been a journey for me to integrate all of myself, to not, because in the world of holistic stuff, it's more heart-led, right? And it's like we just talked about this on your trip to Africa, right? It's like, in the American culture, it's like you're either all money or you're not, right? Or you're all soul, or can I have this heart-led business? A lot of people that are in service, they sacrifice. And they take pride in sacrificing and pride on putting, not having and to have service. And so for me, my journey, we talk about trauma. We talked about how trauma can be our stage. And for me, in my childhood, money, I think by accident, happened to be a forefront conversation in our home. And my parents worked really hard for everything that they had. They worked in factories. They did the best they could. And in that generation, credit cards were a thing that really were just created, right? And invented in their lifetime. There was not a teacher to say, hey, this is how you can get in trouble for credit cards, right? So that generation took the blow, and we got to all learn from them. But in kind of my identity development of middle school, I watched my parents lose, quote unquote, the story I had then was lose everything, right? And my perspective as adults, we didn't lose everything, we gained everything, because it actually got us into a better situation. But that was really hard for me to have to watch them go through the stress up to that bankruptcy, right? And then watch them have to move homes and all of those things, right? And so I made this vow to myself that I will never be that. That will never be me. And as soon as I could start making money, I started babysitting. I had a job at 15 at Subway. I always just had work, right? I was.
Do you have a job at Subway?
I certainly
No
did.
way.
I can make a sandwich, okay? Like, I will always have that on my resume.
One of the most fun jobs I've ever had.
Sandwich artist, So anyway, like
I was at Steak and Shake. I wish I would have been at Subway. I'll make it sound
Subway. I mean, so I always just was hyper focused on money. And then we were talking about our culture, right? In the American culture, we're also conditioned to think about money. So I probably have this trauma and then also this cultural deep conditioning, right? And if anybody knows like Enneagram, I'm an achiever personality. Like if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do something.
Type 3?
Okay, are you type 3 too?
I need to retest because I've been told I'm a 2 wing 3.
Okay, well you understand. Like it's never
But I
enough.
think we talked about how humans evolve. I think I've evolved, and I think I need to retest my Enneagram.
Well, maybe we can plug this in later, but maybe I can run your human design. So I do a whole...
I would be honored.
Okay, so I'm a human design coach and do all these things with human design. I love Enneagram, but what I love about human design, it's all based on your birth information, and we can't pick when we're born, where Enneagram's very like your choice. And we talk about what like trauma can define how you see yourself, right? And so I'm like, well, am I? But I really am a 3, like through and through. And that's been a blessing, but it's also like I have to stay really mindful because I can be a workaholic, right? And I woke up to that. I don't know. I just always think about business and work, and I have to be really conscious and intentional to not do that all the time. So, and all that kind of goes back from that trauma. And so I've just worked really hard my whole life. I was blessed to not get into debt because I watched my parents get into debt. I was blessed. I was married before, and my previous father-in-law took me under his wing, and he really parented me in a way and taught me things that my parents couldn't teach me. So he taught me the Dave Ramsey style. He budgeted. I was 16. He's making my spreadsheets and teaching me how to budget. And okay, you're going to buy your car in cash, and you're not going to go shop at Victoria's Secret, and you're not going to go to Abercrombie. You're going to save your money. And so I was instilled with this trauma, but then also this mentor at such a young age.
That's really a blessing.
Oh, he's not my father-in-law anymore, but I will always love him.
Of course.
He will always be a father to me in a certain way because he was a mentor to me, and really just took and came into my life in a way that my parents just couldn't. They didn't have the education to give me, right? And so he was able to give that to me, and so...
And it doesn't make them bad parents. It's just
humans. Was just they're coming from where they could come.
Exactly.
And my parents have given me so much, but they just couldn't give me that in that category. And so that set me up to be able to buy a house really young, right? And so I was able to get my first house when I was really early 20s, and in that time frame I was always working full-time. I never stopped working full-time while I was going to college. So all my friends that were having fun, I didn't. I worked. And I worked full time. I was saving my money. I bought a house before I was done college, you know.
Do you look back on that time and regret that at all? Or are you like pretty proud of that? Like,
I look back and I have compassion for that girl.
Right on.
You know, and like I could cry thinking about it. Like, wow, like even like my
sounds like you're proud of that person.
Like, that person did a lot, but like, okay, so I was telling you before, I have a little babysitter at my house right now. She's graduating high school, and she has so much pressure on her. And I'm an adjunct professor and have a lot of compassion for these students because there's so much pressure to be and to perform and to get the perfect degree. And how much money am I going to make? And I want to look at them and say, you have so much time. Like I work so hard, but I'm still becoming. Like in a couple of months, I'm going to sell my last piece of real estate as a real estate agent, and I'm going to retire my license. I'm not going to be in real estate. I'm going full time more into Float in the holistic community because I'm still becoming, and that's where my soul is evolving to. And I just went. I think I work in the schools, and I was almost late to the podcast talking to my babysitter because I have such a heart for that age because we put so much pressure on ourselves, and our society puts pressure on ourselves. Our society is putting pressure on all of us.
Oh God, yeah, tell me about it.
All the time, and it's like, hey, you have time to breathe.
Yeah.
You don't have to figure this all out. Like, let's stop and get the calculator. Like, I was doing math with her this morning and budgeting, and I'm like, just breathe. Like, you do not have to have 2 jobs and try to go she was literally trying to do 2 jobs and 2 degrees all in 2 years. So I'm like, honey, breathe. You know, because if somebody could have told me that and I wouldn't have. That's part of my story. I think I needed to build this up because what happened when I was building and my becoming through that was, okay, I got out of school. I got a corporate job. I got into Verizon Wireless, which is a very masculine, hustle, Americanized Fortune 5 company. They give you a roadmap, and like, this is where you're going. I knew I wanted my own store because that was what success was. To get your bachelor's degree in that company, you had to have your own store. So by 24, I'd worked my way up to have my own store. So I was hit that, like, I'm making 6 figures goal that every American had. I mean, 6 figures was great at that point. You know, now it's like you got to have 2 jobs, even if one of them pays you 6 figures because of the economy. But so back then it was like I got at 24 what some people don't get until they're 50. And I'll never forget sitting on a beach, and I was like literally on a call with like my boss yelling about numbers. I had money in the bank and tons of vacation time and no joy. And I thought there was a book called Lean In by Lean In.
That sounds familiar.
She was like the CEO of Facebook, but there was one, it's blanking me. I'll come back to it.
Jamie, pull that up.
Dude, no, Lean In, but then there's another book that, oh my gosh, she wrote a magazine, not Forbes,
Sheryl Sandberg?
Sheryl Sandberg is a Facebook CEO, and she wrote one about leaning in, but that's more about women coming in and leaning in and owning yourself at the table. But then there was another lady, it'll come to me later, but she wrote a book, and she was an entrepreneur, and she passed out in her office and then woke up in a pool of blood.
Whoa.
And that was her wake-up call to, like, what is success? Like, what is success?
Wait,
it was the
she
lady.
Okay?
Yeah, she's okay. She's okay.
What? How does that happen?
Well, because she was chronically working and not sleeping, and so then it's Arianna Huffington. Arianna Huffington with the Huffington Post wrote. It's called Thrive. Okay, it's all coming to me. And her book Thrive, I read at a young age at 24 after I was like not thriving, right, and not having joy. And so
I mean, you were thriving on paper.
I was thriving the way our culture defines thriving. Right now, you know, my personal financial statement would say I'm thriving. My husband and I look at it and we're like, this isn't a legacy. This is BS, right? This is not a legacy. This is taking this financial statements, taking time and energy from our children to keep all of these companies in there. What are we doing? This is not success. Is this how we want to live? And so, yes, we built up this massive portfolio of real estate, and yes, we've done all of these things, but right now we're taking it all down. I mean, we had 64 doors, and now we're down to like 12 because that's not thriving. That's not success. That's what America tells you success is, right?
Right.
And so I think it's really important for each of us to say, and like, sometimes it takes us reaching the milestones that other people defined as success. Maybe in the industry of like, you know, take it back to your body and weightlifting. Maybe it's like winning that competition and being like, wait a minute. I'm no happier than I was before I got this.
Yeah, the moment is very fleeting.
It's very fleeting.
I've definitely had moments in my career where I was way more focused on chasing money and work. And I was miserable. And I was making plenty of money.
You got the money. Yeah.
And I'm like, I finally I hit my goal number for this month or whatever, and I have zero time to do anything.
You're miserable. Yeah.
I can't find time to work out. I can't find time to spend time with my family, my friends. Like, you'd have friends that are like, hey, we're going to this concert. Have an extra ticket for you this weekend if you want to come. And I'd be like, sorry, I'm working. And I took pride in that until I realized, I don't think I can sustain this. Yeah. I don't like it. I would rather have more time for like less people, and if that means less money, then fine. But it's wild how that happens.
Yeah, and I think that's like what COVID, I think, woke up a lot of us to a lot of things we were doing because we were unconsciously doing things because it was just deeply conditioned into our society, and it gave us this big pause to be able to, and so when we got to start up against, okay, how do we want to do it? So for us right now, so long story short, I ended up going into real estate, building up the portfolio, but along the way, I got the gift of being able to purchase Float Nashville. So take it back all the way to 24 years old as a store manager in Verizon Wireless. I thought I was going to have a heart attack one day, and I look across the street and there was a hot yoga studio. And I was like, I think I'm going to go to that. Like, I just opened. It was a Gold's Gym. And so I did. I went. And, like, for the whole hour in there, I thought I was going to die in that hot yoga studio. You know, I was, like, literally
entirely
in hell,
how my hot yoga experience has
been.
been.
And I'm like, oh, my God. But then, like, my boss hadn't called me in an hour. And it was 1 hour that I hadn't thought about work. Yeah. And that seems crazy thinking about that now, but like that was a big deal. So that kept me going, and it became a game. Like my sales reps would come with me, I'd pick them each week, and they'd rotate. So it became like store culture to go to hot yoga with me. But then hot yoga taught me how, because you know, once you learn the poses, you start connecting breath. And then when I got the breath down, well, then you start listening to your thoughts. And then my whole life changed. That's when I woke up and was like, oh, I'm not happy in my job. I worked so hard for this. I've slaved for this. I've got to quit. And then I quit that. And then I realized, oh, my God, this marriage isn't okay with me. I actually just want, like, I married my ex-husband because my father-in-law was a father to me. Right? And, like, wow, I need to quit that marriage. And so the practice of yoga and intentionality is what helped me wake up and take down the life that I had worked so hard to build and build it more intentionally. And now I'm in a beautiful marriage, a great partnership. And in this partnership, we have the same work ethic. And, you know, we ended up building this beautiful portfolio together, but luckily in a really conscious way. And now we're able to consciously scale back and be able to together as a partnership say, whoa, we have a 5 and 6 year old right now. We have this small blip of a window to spend this time with our kids. How do we want to do that? And along the way, I got the gift of being able to purchase Float Nashville. And so Float Nashville is sensory deprivation. But what Float Nashville did for me as like an entrepreneur is it brought both halves of me together. So it brought this, I get to have this business part of me, this entrepreneur part of me, but then I also get to have this soulful part of me where I can help and educate and teach people about their nervous system, help them regulate. Because guess what? Some people have a calling that keeps them on that rat race, right? They're the stressful surgeon, or I don't know, all of us have a story, but we all have dysregulation in our day, no matter what journey we decide to take. And so now I feel like my deepest soul calling is to teach people how to stay as regulated as possible so they can achieve their goals in a really healthy way, in a holistic way. But then also say, hey, you can have both. Can't you have soul and
hustle?
Yeah,
I think it's really important that you're making that point, because I struggle with both, where I'm like, I really like to work. I like my job. I like being productive. I like to do. But then, like, I'm like, okay, I'm maybe doing too much. I don't want to burn out. And I've definitely burnt myself out. And that's when I know, okay, too much. Yeah. Too much of anything is a bad thing, including rest. And like, I'm going to pull back and do nothing, you know? And I'll do that on weekends a lot, where I'm like, okay, I need to pull back. I need to rest. I need to not focus on work. I need to put work away. I put Instagram away, put it all away. And then I'll go do something like outside or whatever. And then like Sunday will come around. I'm like, okay, we're still chilling. We're still allowed to do that. And then Monday will come around. It's like, okay, I want to sleep in. No, and then once I get back into my routine, I'm like, okay, I'm motivated again. So it's easy to go too much in one direction or the other.
Yeah.
But having that balance, you can be both. You can be somebody who's super productive, who really likes to work, who really likes business and entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
and you can be somebody who also is really needing and wanting the holistic approach and peace and harmony
Yeah.
and being able to regulate your nervous
Yes.
system, because that in and of itself, my mom and I talk about this because my mom just became a travel agent. She trained really hard to become this, it's a very stressful job, and she's working all the time. And when she first started, I was worried about her because she would work and not get up from her desk. And she's just, I have to do that. And I'm like, you have to get up, because if you don't get up and take breaks, you're not going to be as productive tomorrow. You're going to be tired. You're going to lose sleep. You're going to be frustrated with clients. It's going to catch up with you. And eventually she saw me doing that, and she's like, you know what, you're right. And we talk about it all the time now. And it's kind of bonded us, because it's she'll be like, I set my timer for every 20 minutes to get up and take a break. And I'm like, you go, Mom, and it makes you more productive so that you can, that side of you can be nourished because you've nourished the other side of you.
Right.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I think it's just it goes back to intentionality, right? And being able to be really mindful and plugging in your schedule, those different things. Like being able to, okay, I'm going to stand up, I'm going to go ground, I'll be outside for 15 minutes, then come back in. Or when I have my client schedule, making sure they're not back to back to back to back. Because what if I get in a really good organic conversation? We're supposed to have an hour session, but maybe it goes an hour and 20. But maybe that 20 minutes fills me just as much as it does them. Do I really want to rush to the next client? So it's learning to buffer in those things so you can really sink in and experience the fullness of it. Because we just said, it's so much more than just the end goal. It's not about the competition and winning it, right? It's about the journey it took you to get to there, right? All those little moments in between. And that's the same with everything, whether it's work or your job. And for me, the little practices I have on my calendars, I like to do things with the moon and the month. And so a lot of people in their year, they just reflect once a year, if they even do that, right? And it's the end of the year, they're making their New Year's goals, but they don't have those micro check-ins. And so for me, monthly, I do it twice a month. I just happen to be a little woohoo and do it new moon and full moon, right? But it's okay, what were my intentions? And also, hey, what have I done? Okay, maybe Float Nashville didn't hit its goal for whatever the promo was, but what did we do? And then I can build from a place of honor, build from a place of success and momentum. And from those third lines, it's really important to do that, because often we look at what we didn't get done.
Right.
Not what we did. And some of the things that we do are just beautiful connections that were made that maybe there's not a dollar attached to it now, but guess what? There'll be lots of dollars later, because it was a very deep-rooted connection that takes time to grow.
The long game.
The long game, yes.
People don't think about the long game.
No.
And what you said is so important about we focus so much on what we didn't do and what we didn't get done and what we don't have. But we forget the little accomplishments that add up in the long game to bring fortune or satisfaction later on. But I think because human nature, we're wired to want control. We're wired to we hate the unknown. We hate not knowing what's coming. And so people like to know what's coming. And it's if you just relinquish that control and just accept that whatever's coming is going to come no matter what, I'm going to work to add up these little wins here, and I'm going to celebrate them, and I'm going to acknowledge them as little wins, because people are people are so hard on themselves that they don't acknowledge those things. It's it's not good enough. Yeah. That's the problem with our culture. So if we did celebrate those things and did let them add up, I do think that we would stop focusing so much on what we don't have and what we didn't accomplish, because that takes up so much brain space that by the end of your life, you're like, why was I focused on that?
And always starting your new month or your new year from a place of lack.
Yes.
Instead of a place of respect and honor for what you did.
It's fear. It's adjacent with
the
fear.
Lowest vibration.
Right. Yeah. And I want to talk more about human design and exactly how you would define that, because I'm not familiar with that. But before we go there, we do have to take a short break for our sponsors, so we will be back.
Defining a new era in men's health. No shortcuts, just results. Get stronger and healthier by putting your health back in order at Game Day Men's Health. We offer services like testosterone replacement therapy, peptide therapy, ED, medical weight loss, and vitamin therapy, in spaces designed for men. Privacy, comfort, flat screen TVs, and zero fluff. Our in-house lab nails down your testosterone levels in 15 minutes. Get in, Get treated and get back to your passion and purpose. Call 615-420-2700 to set up your free testosterone test and consultation. Mention Nashville Fit for 10% discount off your first service. Start living your best life. Game Day Men's Health, Green Hills.
And we are back with our friend Rachel, and we were just about to get into talking about human design. So tell us more about what is human design.
So human design is it's a combination of a lot of like ancient science mixed in with modern science and
like astrology
your birth. Yep. So it's got astrology, it's got the I Ching, it's got quantum physics, it's got the your chakra system in there. But basically, in the short, like we mentioned, Enneagram. So it's a way to understand how your energy flows in your body. And witnessing our conversation in the very beginning, the comment about HIIT workout versus cardio, that was really intriguing to me to listen to that conversation and think through a lens of human design. It made me curious about your charts because in human design, there's 4 different like overarching personality designs, basically, or it's not personality, it's energy designs. And in those energy designs, some people have activation of what we call our sacral center, and the sacral is your life force energy. And when we have that consistently activated, it's really important that every single day you burn off that energy. If you don't burn that energy, it's hard to go to sleep. You feel like maybe especially in our culture, we work a lot mentally. So we can be mentally tired, but if you didn't physically move your body, it's going to feel like you can't go to sleep. You can't wind down. And
wow.
So
You know what's crazy about you saying this right now is I'm listening to the audiobook, The Untethered Soul. It's a very popular book, and I've read it, but it's been years. So I was like, it popped up on my suggested listen to. I'm like, yes, and it's talking about energy. Like literally on my way here, it was talking about how energy can get stuck in your body, circling around itself.
Yes.
So continue.
Okay, so it's so important, we talked about your mom getting up and moving in her desk, right? Sitting from them. It's really important to move the energy in your body. A lot of times, it's an issue in our culture with depression and anxiety. Depression and anxiety often happen when we have trapped energy in our bodies because most of people in our jobs now, we're sitting. And I would have said I am very busy and an active person, but what I'm doing is I'm driving a lot, right? I'm in a lot of different places every day. But I'm not walking to them unless I'm intentional about walking, right? And so I feel like I've been everywhere, but like if I wasn't intentional, I might have only taken 2,000 steps. Right?
That's
and
so
because I didn't move the energy's trapped, and it's also creating the feelings of anxiety. Right? And then we hyper focus on anxiety that can lead to bad thoughts, which lead to depression. Okay, so that's
a game-changing sentence that you just said.
I don't even know what it was.
I find that happens to me. It's like you think you're doing all this stuff because you drive everywhere, which I do the same thing, and then I'm like, wow, I haven't moved my phone.
Why is my phone lying to me?
Why am I shaking with energy?
Wild. So from like a human design perspective, we can see your energy centers in your body, and it's like, hey, where are you moving energy? But then also, where are you amplifying energy of others? Because in some people's energy design, they amplify emotions around them. So you might think you're anxious, but then you're like, what is wrong? Why am I anxious? What is going on? Nothing's wrong. But the question is, who are you around? Who have you talked to? What have you consumed? Did you just watch something from the news? Now you're amplifying it in your body. Was your boss just feeling anxiety, and now you have gotten his anxiety? Because we all have different gifts and talents energetically, because we're all wired for a purpose, right? And we're all wired very uniquely and different for our purpose that we're supposed to fulfill. So human design, what I love about it is, if we take it back to science and we talk about left brain and right brain, left brain is really logical. And in our culture, we're conditioned from a really young age to get into the logic brain. The logic brain is celebrated, and it is really worked out. Like we talk about a muscle, like the brain is a muscle, and that left side is really worked out. Well, talk about as an artist, as a drummer, right? All of those drumming, yes, at one point you were logically learning music, right, and the language of music, but when you're tapping in, that's funny, tapping, because you're drumming, but I didn't do that. But when you're tapping in, and you're in flow, you're in that right brain. You're in that creative brain. And that obviously is a natural gift that you have, that you can do that. But where the misunderstanding is people think you're either creative or you're not.
Yes.
And that's not true. You can work out your right brain just like you can your left brain. And floating, so if we go back to Float Nashville, floating and flotation therapy helps you get into what's called theta brainwave. And that is helping you. So what it does is it relaxes your nervous system, which is that fight or flight, relaxes left brain logic, and then enhances right brain creativity. So inside the float tank, your brain's able to activate in ways it does not outside of the tank. So basically, you're working your brain out, right? Mm-hmm. So then when you're out of the tank, now I am very creative. I'm not a drummer, and I can't sing, and I can't do music. And if I paint, one time somebody at a yard sale, I did the paint, and she goes, "Oh, this is such a beautiful piece. Did an elephant paint this?" And my husband's like cracking up. Like, I am not. So from like culture definition, I am not an artist. But I'm really freaking creative. Like, I'm really creative in business. I'm really creative with my children. Like, I am creative. It just looks
People think
different.
creativity has to be like an art form too.
Right.
It's
No,
you can be
it
creative
can be,
in business,
yes.
like you just said. Yeah,
And your intuition lives in your right brain, right? And so it's like, how can we tap into that right brain? And so why I fell in love, or what made me fall in love with human design is very logical. Okay? And so it gave my very logical, because I'm very analytical and logical, it gave my very logical brain language to trust and understand my energetic body. So then I can drop into my body. And we just talked about this. Being embodied is where you're whole, right? When you're not disconnected from your body. You love those HIIT workouts because it brings you into your body. Well, coming into your body can release anxiety and depression and things like that, right?
Absolutely.
When we can work holistically. And so for me and my story, human design gave my brain language for my body so I could trust it, so I could understand it, and so I could move and make decisions quicker. And with ease and with less doubt. Like when Float Nashville came, I knew I was supposed to purchase that business. It was very clear to me. Logically, it made no sense. It looked like a terrible business decision, but my body was at peace. Luckily, my husband and I, for years, have been practicing human design together, and we just have this flow with each other. We're very opposite, but we're great partners because we understand each other. And I know it's because we understand each other's human design. So I can see him on paper, and he can see me on paper, and then we can give grace. And we understand why we do things completely opposite. And we run together, but we run different lanes of different businesses because we can't work together. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense. Because we're both
makes
alphas
sense.
And we do things different. But I can look at his business and be like, oh my God, I would not do that way. But that is awesome that you're doing that way.
Well, that comes from two people wanting to understand how the other person ticks. And I think in relationship, no matter romantic or not, like, that's huge. Wanting to understand the other person, not wanting to be understood so much.
Yes.
You know, like...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you think there's any, this is just a random question about human design, any kind of risk of having that knowledge as almost a cop-out? Because you hear people say, like, oh, I'm a 6 or I'm a Sagittarius. And it's just
I'm an Aries.
Yes.
I don't do that.
Hey, I'm Carol.
And I'm Lauren.
And we're the owners of All Strength Nashville.
All Strength is a private, female-owned and operated fitness studio with a focus on overall strength and longevity of health.
Our approach to training is rooted in current evidence-based research that encourages consistency and sustainability for an overall well-balanced lifestyle.
We're redefining modern fitness by focusing on the science behind long-term health and wellness rather than quick fixes and cookie-cutter programs.
We offer full-body strength training in the form of group classes and one-on-ones, 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday.
No matter where you're at on your journey, we can help you find your fitness. You can follow us on Instagram at All Strength Nashville, and while you're there, DM us to book your first class. So if you're ready,
rediscover yourself
and redefine your fitness at All Strength Nashville.
Yeah.
Hear what happened to me?
Yes, I do.
So I'm a manifestor in human design.
Okay.
And as a manifestor, I don't have sacral. Energy. And through my journey of like becoming and learning, everywhere in human design is like manifestors need deep rest. You always need a rest. You need a rest. Rest more. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, and I'm a workaholic. Mm-hmm. The last thing I'm doing is resting, and I have 2 little kids, all these things. I'm like, rest. Well, it wasn't until I started learning, like, okay, yeah, I'm a manifestor, but I'm human.
Yeah.
Okay, I still have a nervous system. I still have blood that needs to flow in my body. I still need to move. That's BS. Like, I don't need to rest. And, like, yes, I do need, like, more space. Like, when I come through something, like, we just had a huge estate sale. We just sold our house. I'm coming off, like, a lot of stuff back to back to back. I need a light week this week.
Yeah.
That's what rest really means. It means I don't need to put pressure on myself to have a quote-unquote productive schedule how I normally run at my peak. I need to give myself grace this week. Like, I'm not doing anything the rest of the day. I have nothing in my schedule tomorrow, right? Because things will come up and I'll have things to do in my businesses, but I don't need to pack my schedule because I know that my sacral needs to fill back up, so I'm not depleting my body. But 5 years ago, I would have been, like, trying to plan in naps and stuff because I didn't understand what that meant, right? So I do feel like people can misunderstand and take things too far, and I think it's really important to know how you're wired, and you can use it from a very narcissistic point of view, or you can look at it like, for me, human design cracked me wide open to give me deep compassion for others, because now I don't, like you were like, hey, that's interesting, you saw both sides of that. I see all sides of everything now because I'm really curious, because I don't want to defend my point of view. I love to learn from other people because I've seen hundreds and hundreds of charts in front of me, and it's like, whoa, like, you're wired so different. Tell me more about that. Like,
do you ever feel like, because you are so, I guess, able, for lack of a better word, to understand other people and you seek that out, do you ever have moments of like, okay, but me though, like, no one is doing that for me? Because in a world that we live in, that's the majority of people, in my experience, it's don't have that type of empathy and aren't like, I want to understand you more than I want you to understand me. You know what I mean? Does that ever come back to be like, man, this is hard?
Well, you know, it's interesting. Okay, so I'm an educator at heart, and so I'm always teaching back. Okay, and so really people in my inner circle know my language, and they're curious. I've attracted curious people.
Okay, because you're curious.
Because I'm curious. And
makes
Float
sense.
Nashville is like if you think the world's terrible, I just want you to come sit in Float Nashville for a little bit, and you will leave so filled up and so full, and you're gonna be like, oh my God, the world's full of really beautiful, amazing, curious, non-judgmental people, because we are, and as humans, wired that way. Things that we watch, things that we're conditioned and told, are trying to keep us separate, thinking we're different, and there's a war out there. There's not. We're beautiful people, right? And I mean, there is a war literally going on, but I'm talking about here in Nashville, in our neighborhoods, beautiful people, right? And where it gets really hard for me, I'm actually heavy today because I'm dealing with something like this in my business, is I see all sides of something, and like, I have to make a really heavy decision in my business today, this week. I'm not going to do, I tell myself I'm not doing it today, but in my business this week, that's going to affect someone else. But I see that person's story, and I understand why they're doing what they're doing, but now it's negatively affecting my business. So now I have to make a business decision that's going to ultimately, quote unquote, maybe hurt that person. But I have to protect my business, even though I can see why that person's acting the way they're doing. And that really breaks me at my core. And like, I have to, that's something right now I'm actively working on and seeking out mentorship on, is how do I braid both sides of me and also always protect my business and my family? Because I have to learn to do the dance. And because sometimes the compassion, like they say, hire slow, fire fast. It's really hard for me to fire fast. I often fire too slow, and actually will take a huge hit for me personally before I will let someone go, even though I knew 6 months before this wasn't going to work. You know what I mean? So that's something I'm actively working on. And I was actually talking to a business coach on the way here. I'm like, okay, and she's more energy work, so we're working on some energy parts work, because a lot of that comes from trauma probably, right? But it also can come from deep compassion. So for me personally, it hurts me when I'm trying to keep the peace, or if I can see too much of the full circle, and it keeps me from doing what I already knew. I knew 2 weeks ago I should have done this, and I haven't done it yet.
It makes it harder.
And I gave myself a deadline by Thursday.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll do it, and it's fine. It's going to be fine. And also I know that what's best for me will ultimately be best for that person too, right? Someone has to make the move. And so that's something
I've learned in business is I've definitely sacrificed to the point where it's putting myself under the bus before the other person.
Yeah.
And I have always, been like, well, I'm a compassionate person. That's a good thing, right? And it's like, you can still be compassionate and protect yourself. Because when, at the end of the day, you're putting yourself last, it does nothing. No. And it actually is a disservice to the people that you're working with.
And the rest of the business.
Yes. Yeah, and that...
Because it affects the culture. And that's where I'm at. I'm like, and then I've had to also...
And then you've told people what you're worth, or what you think you're worth, which is...
Yeah, and you've set a precedent.
You want to be under the bus?
Uh-huh.
Right.
Yeah, so what I've started to do a little bit in my business is like, well, would I let this happen in my home with my children? Because I'll go to war for my children. You know what I mean? So, like, I have to look at Float Nashville as like my baby. Literally. It's like my baby. That's how I have to approach it in order for me to do the hard thing.
Well, and it's a business that is, it's not just so you can keep people, your family, in a good place. It's serving other people like every day. So
it's so important.
It's got to stay in business and doing well and thriving. Yeah. Yeah. And you could argue, well, McDonald's isn't doing that for people, but it is for the employees that work there. It is for the people who own it. It is for the people who are hungry, who need something cheap to eat,
It's a whole thing.
Well, we need to wrap things up, unfortunately. I get so sucked into the story. Jarrell is usually the one that's here all right, he's way better about time than I am. I get sucked in, and I could talk to you all day because you're very intriguing. And
thank you.
I always am like, can we schedule a coffee date?
Yes,
and I want to learn about my human design. Yeah, but because I make friends with the people we have on. And it's always someone wonderful. You're wonderful. So thank you for coming out. Is there anything, Jarrell, we love you. This is his line. Is there anything that you would like to leave our listeners with today? Like, if you have one thing that you'd like to leave with our listeners.
Well, I think embodiment was a huge theme from start to finish. And so I would like to encourage you, no matter where you're listening, how can you get into your body today? And a fun practice that I do all day, every day, is I love to wash my hands. And so, washing your hands is a really way to come back into the present moment and even back into the body. Like, smelling the soap, feeling the warm water, being so grateful. Oh, my God. Literally, just practice that. It's a game changer because you
I'm going to do that. It's so funny you say that because every time I go to wash my hands, I'm like, hurry, back to what I was doing,
Yeah, but if you can really and it's just a few moments, right? And even my daughter now, she's 5, and she's like, Mom, the water, because some restaurants have warm water. Mom, the water is so warm. I'm like, I know, isn't it fabulous? Get some more soap. You know what I mean? Just these little moments.
I love that.
It's 30 seconds, you know? But that can bring you back into your body. And really the movement's so important. We talked about we're chronically sitting, and so making sure you can get those steps in is really important. I was diagnosed with endometriosis in January, and just the chronic or the lack of movement really can exacerbate so many things that are common in our world today, that can be prevented. And, yes, going to the gym, yes, going to work out, but just finding ways to move your body a little bit more, because we are driving so much. Park a little bit further away. In between my student classes, I'll just walk and listen to a podcast or talk on the phone. Make it easy and convenient. It doesn't have to be a whole big thing. Just make it simple. That way your body can move so you don't have to worry about anxiety. Or you might have chronic anxiety and depression, but it can be lessened through those little practices.
Really, it can be that simple. And I think it started trending that there were some fitness influencers on Instagram saying, stop telling people that walking is effective in losing weight. People need to do more than walk. And I'm like, I beg to freaking differ, because some people aren't used to walking 30 minutes a day. And if they did incorporate that, it absolutely would make a difference, not just for the purposes of losing weight, but for mental health.
Well,
and if your mental health is improved, it's more likely that you'll be able to lose weight.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's all things. It's like hitting everything.
It's circulation. It can improve so many things. So it can be that simple.
And you might be able to make a phone call so you have connection with friends.
Yep. My guide in Africa, he asked me, what can I do to lose weight? And I'm like, well, do you walk? And he's like, well, I've tried to run, but it's hard on my knees. I'm like, you don't have to run. Yeah. Walk. How often do you run? And he's like, I try to do it 3 times a week. And I'm like, instead of trying to run 3 times a week, why don't you try walking 5 days a week?
Yeah.
It's way easier.
And find somewhere fun that you like.
And he didn't believe me. He's like, are you sure that's enough? And I'm like, for now. Yeah. Hit me up in a couple months if it doesn't start to work, you know, but we do need to get into our closing segment, which is Stretch Your Intellect, which is brought to you this month by All Strength, which we love All Strength in Brentwood, our good friends. So thank you to our friends at All Strength for Stretch Your Intellect. Basically, this is just a segment of facts. We don't debate them. They are just straight, hard facts that you can't argue with. Sometimes they're really interesting. And it looks like the theme is right on brand here, because I'm reading astrology. So check it out. The term Dog Days of Summer originates from ancient Greek and Roman astrology. It refers to the period when Sirius, like Sirius Black from Harry Potter, the brightest star in the Canis Major constellation, often called the Dog Star, rises and sets with the sun. This period typically falls in July and early August and is associated with hot, sultry weather. So
Can't wait.
July and August, baby.
Perpetual
Sirius is
dampness of
out
Nashville
there.
summer.
I love it.
We know it gets hot and sultry in Nashville for sure. The cicadas know very well too. God, I can't believe I came back to cicadas.
Did you love them?
God, I hate them. My sister can like pick them up and touch them and
I
like,
love
and I'm
them.
like, ugh, get the thing away from me.
They make a lot of juice when you step on them. That's what I noticed.
I
Good
don't
grief.
even
You
want
guys
to
not remember them as kids?
I do. Yeah.
Okay. Did
yeah.
you play them as kids? Like as kids, I played with them
I just
and
remember
loved
finding
them.
the shells everywhere.
It's
Did
funny.
you
I
love
like
it,
bugs.
though?
Oh, yeah.
I don't mind
Yeah.
bugs, but cicadas, I'm just like, nah.
So I would normally, like me now, I'd be terrified and hate cicadas. But when I was little and they came out, I played with them and loved them.
I did too.
So when we came back, because I was the same way, I was like in Florida and then came back and I was like, oh, they're out. And I've been like, it's taken me back to the summer when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, that was so fun. And my kids are playing with them.
Yeah.
I should try to have that perspective
It's
because
like,
I
Go play with
I
some
get
bugs.
them weird.
remember loving that. I mean, I'm not touching one now, but I'm like, I'm so glad my kids are loving it because
Yeah.
it's reminding me how I used to love them, and that's okay not to love them now.
They're
But-
harmless. I mean, they do nothing.
Yeah, thank God, right?
Yeah. If they weren't, I don't think I'd see the light of
Yeah,
day.
we would be walking in the garage.
Yeah.
No nature walks.
I don't know. That'd probably be wow. It's like COVID, but
Yeah,
way
lockdown
different.
again.
Oh my
Oh
god.
my gosh.
All right. Do you have a stretch your intellect over there? Do you guys have one?
Oh, yes, I do.
All right. Let's hit it. What do you got?
All right. The tradition of eating ice
Just
cream
one?
in the summer dates back to ancient civilizations who would mix snow with honey and fruit juices to create a primitive form of ice cream.
That's a snow cone.
Yeah.
That ain't ice cream. But that's where it
What are they doing?
originated.
Kind of like roll maple syrup in snow or something like
Well,
that.
we've come a long way because that's a snow cone. And snow cones are still a thing, and they're not ice cream. I hate snow cones.
That
I
is
think
a
they're
fact.
stupid. that's just me.
I don't have a fact. That was another thing. It's okay though, right? It wasn't. It was like the first thing.
You gotta make up your own. That's part of the show. Yeah.
What's a good fact? Hashtag
We
facts
will check it.
by Rachel.
Facts. Flotation therapy.
Let's go. That was. Go ahead.
So flotation therapy can really help you with your physical recovery, and it can also, and scientifically, it's like all in the neuroscience community, it can help with stress, anxiety, depression, insomnia, PTSD. So Float Nashville is a great place. Come see us.
Perfect plug.
Let's go. Facts. Hashtag facts. You heard it here. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Rachel. I'm really intrigued by this conversation. Thank you, Dylan, for being here. It's just
Happy
been
to be here.
such a grand time. And listeners, we thank you guys for listening. We will see you guys next time. Peace out.
Bye.
See ya.